Kamala Harris never stopped talking about the systemic injustice that pervades America. Now she says it's the cause of migration to America. If America is so unjust, why do people fleeing injustice want to come here? Of course, her whole trip last week was overshadowed by her rude and shambolic responses when asked when she'd visit the border.
We've been to the border.
You haven't been to the border.
And I haven't been to Europe. And I don't.
When are you going to the border, Vice President?
The administration has asked. I'm not finished. I've said I'm going to the border.
I don't know. I think maybe she is finished, actually, politically, at least. Actually, I think she's quite right not to visit the border. She says she wants to tackle the root causes of the border crisis. So she just needs to go to the White House. Back with us, Pete Hegseth, along with Fox News contributor Sarah Carter. Sarah, who really has been to the border. What do you make of the Vice President's week tackling the border crisis?
I think she's terrified of going to the border. I think the vice president doesn't go to the border because all of the lies of the Biden administration would be exposed when she does. This is the reason why so few journalists are down at the border right now covering this story. Steve, I can tell you, I was down there. I watched as smugglers brought raft after raft in the middle of the night across the Rio Grande, let people off the raft into the hands of our National Guard, and our Border Patrol was sitting there waiting to process them. This was at like 1 in the morning, and it was boatload after boatload after boatload. So the fact that Kamala Harris, the vice president, is saying we're returning people back to their home countries, that is not the truth. That is a lie. We have people being abused. We have human trafficking. We have drug trafficking. We have an increase in violence on both sides of the border, and nobody's resolving this crisis. Yeah. It's a national security issue for everyone in the Western Hemisphere.
And even on their own terms, Pete, right? They talk the whole time about compassion, how compassionate they're, how cruel Trump was, how compassionate they are. Even on those terms, this is, what is it? Just now we had the data, it's the highest numbers in 20 years or whatever. It is a humanitarian crisis that they've created.
Yes, it is. And they are facilitating human trafficking. Let's be clear about this. They're facilitating the separation of kids from their parents, which they indicted the Trump administration of. But through their policies, you see tens of thousands of people openly coming across our border and disappearing, getting them out of Border Patrol facilities immediately into, this is not a border state issue. This is across the country. And when you talk about root causes, Steve, I actually taught counterinsurgency in Afghanistan, where we talked a lot about root causes. You got to be there for 100 years if you want to address these root causes down there. She flies down on one of our publicly financed airplanes to give them a lecture about root causes, throw a few dollars at Central American countries and pretend like that's going to do something. That's doing nothing. They know it, though. And ultimately, the sad part is I think they believe this is politically advantageous for them in the long run, hence they don't want us to look at it.
That's what I wanted. That's so right, Pete. And Sarah, just that point about, you know, the Democrats, you know, the administration's true intentions here. It seems to me they want to look as if they're doing something, but then they're not. What's revealing is their actions, and their actions continue to encourage more people to come.
That's absolutely right, Steve. Think about this. I was in Guatemala. I spoke with President Yamate about this directly, and he said, look, we don't need handouts. What we need is great free economic trade. We need what happened, what was established under President Trump. We don't need handouts. We need direct discussion of the issues. And I think that this administration is not willing to do that because they purposefully changed the policy. And, you know, Pete is right about this. They purposefully changed it. We didn't see this flow under President Trump. We see this flow under President Biden because he specifically stated that he was going to change these laws. And that's what moved all of these people to come. And we do perpetuate this behavior with human trafficking as well as drug trade.
And Pete, finally to you, the tragedy of this, I think, is that, with so much effort the Trump administration put in, finally did get a grip of this, with all the different measures, not just the wall, but the legal changes and the immigration policy and the whole system. Okay, right across the board. And they got control of it, and it's just been ripped up. And it'll take years to get that control back, even if you had an administration that wanted to.
they worked very hard and very intentionally to deter the idea that coming to this country illegally is a good thing, that there are incentives. And the real root cause here is the existence of the Biden administration. They're the ones who have said. And the reason why Kamala Harris doesn't want to go to the border is because she says, she goes down there, has the audacity to say, the border's closed, it's not open, don't come, don't come. If she stood on the Rio Grande and watched floods of people walk across both in the middle of the night and in open daylight, as our reporters have shown, she would be shown to be the farce that she is. She can't do that, doesn't want to do that.
Exactly. She is totally out of her depth. And actually, the thing that, I mean, I know a lot of Democrats in California who know her really well. And the reason she's floundering is because everything that you hear about her throughout her career is that she only really puts the effort in to things that benefit her politically. And this absolutely does not. And that's why it's never going to be solved if she's the one that's supposed to be solving it. Thank you both. That great conversation. Sarah, we'll see you a bit later in the show.